Hi, Carl here from selfsufficienthub.com, and today I'm sharing with you a day in the life, just a regular Saturday. This is Saturday the 1st of August, so enjoy. So first thing is make myself a coffee. I'm not a morning person. Now, usually on a Saturday or a Sunday, I would actually get coffee in bed. Just let the dogs out. Because my wife is almost invariably up earlier than me. But wasn't today. So here we are. I'm not a morning person. Need coffee. It's 8:30 now. I'm a really slow starter in the morning. So I've spent in the last hour and a half in bed with my coffee on my phone, just catching up with emails and Facebook and all that stuff, which is my general morning routine. Actually, I don't always spend this long, but it is Saturday. But now we're out and up and full of ready to go-ness. The next job for me is to unload my car. So last night we went and collected some bread from the bakery, and it's in these bins, so I've got to go and distribute that around. So we've got other bins that are located outside all of our animal houses, and we're going to go and spread some of this bread around into those bins there so that it's ready to be used as animal feed. Then these empty bins are going to go back in the car, and then we're going to go to some of the local fruit and veg shops and collect all that. So my wife was up and about early as usual. She is a morning person. We have sort of overlapping shifts. She tends to start outside in the garden at 7 in the morning, 7 days a week pretty much. And she takes care of all the initial checks on the animals. So she will have already gone round, made sure everyone has water and food for the day. And that's an absolute gift. Obviously, it's a huge responsibility and something I don't really have to think about because my wife takes care of that. So if you watch this, Jackie, thank you. And then my shift tends to go later in the day, so Jackie will be sat down inside a couple of hours before me this evening, and I get out of bed a couple of hours after her in the morning. Works quite well, but that's our natural rhythms, and that's a real thing, you know. So some people are morning people and some people are not. I am not. So I've got an empty metal bin that I'm walking to up here, and I'm just going to go and grab that and put that next to where I left the cart. You saw me leave the cart behind there with the bread in the bins on the back of the cart, in those plastic bins. So we're going to go get this metal bin, and then we're going to transfer all that bread into the metal bins, and then that's ready to be distributed as and when. And then we're going to take the plastic bins, put them back in the car, and then we're off out to get some fruit and veg. So it's currently about 8:30, 20 to 9, something like that, and I've got a couple of hard appointments today, really, sort of things that can't be moved. And the first one, and the one that is most strictly timed, most strictly scheduled, is at 1 o'clock. I'm attending the final session of my beginner's beekeeping course. It's the final hands-on session. Now, the course has been truncated due to the pandemic. Usually there'd be a lot more sessions and they'd all be finished by now, but it's difficult times for everyone, so the course has been truncated. So that's the first one. Now that's about an hour away from me. If you're wondering why I'm travelling so far for that course, it's because it was the only course that was available to be done that completed by this spring, just gone. Now obviously that didn't happen in the end, but I really wanted to get my bees this year, and all the other courses when I was signing up last year, they were for this year, like the course would be this year, whereas the one I signed up to, I started in the autumn. So that's why. So it was a little bit further away than I would have liked. I'm just going to throw a little bit of bread to the pigs because they've turned up and they know what's going on. It would be a bit mean not to give them something. So I'll do that. And then, yeah, so that's why I'm on that course. The other thing I've got to do is I'm in the middle of making some cheese. So cheese making is a 3-day process really for me when I make the regular soft goat's cheese that I make, which is the one I make most often. And today's day 2, and it was not going to take me a great deal of time, but I started yesterday morning. So at some point this morning I will need to get the curds out and into cheesecloth. So that's going to make, that's going to give my morning some structure that I kind of need to adhere to. So I need to get all these jobs done fairly rapidly. So this here's the bread. And as you can see, it's huge chunks. What happens is basically at the bakery, when they've finished baking for the day, when they've finished making however many loaves they require, they have quite a lot of dough left over. So they cook it. They just cook the giant slabs of dough because it's much easier for them to dispose of that way. Easier for them, easier for me. So I'm going to finish doing this with 2 hands now because it's going to be much quicker for me. And then we're going to go and get the car loaded up, ready to go and get the fruit and veg. One of the reasons that we try and transfer the bread into metal bins is it helps to keep the vermin out. So we have squirrels and rats that will actually eat through the plastic bins if they can smell bread inside. So we try and transfer them into metal bins if we can. It's not always possible, but we do. Look at those cucumbers. Okay, so we're off to get the fruit and veg now. I'm sure those of you who have followed me for a little while are familiar with my feed process, and this is just one of the ways that we collect free animal feed. So we're going to collect some food now that would otherwise have gone probably to landfill. It would have been commercial waste. So the shops that we're collecting from would have had to pay to dispose of it, and it would have just gone into the waste system. Whereas what we're going to do is we're going to collect it, saving the shop some money. We're going to substitute purchased feed for it, saving us some money, and we're going to recycle it, turning it into pork and eggs and chicken and milk. So there's not much better use for it that I can think of than that. So by law now, obviously, we have to wear face masks. I'm actually exempt because if you're delivering, I just think, in fact, they make a point of saying every time I go there, you don't have to if you don't want to. But I just think it's socially appropriate and helpful. I'm quite happy to do it. And there's not a great deal for me to think about, really. I'm happy to do it. There's no downside. And yeah, we should all be doing our bit. So that's the first collection of the day. We've got one more to stop at on the way home. And at the next one, I won't actually need to go in the shop. It will just be from outside. There'll be a bin outside. I'll put an empty bin there and take the full one. We're all loaded up and back at the house, so we're going to go around now and drop off our bins. Now the fruit and veg, some of it will be going to the other animals, so we pick out certain bits that are good for the goats. We, depending on where the chickens are, we have a batch of chickens at the moment within our wood, which is just to the left here, and there's not a tremendous amount of grass and greenery in their little run that they like, so we like to give them some of the greens. Also, we've got a rabbit and a guinea pig that will also be fed from this food that we've just collected. Those are just pets. One belongs to my daughter, one belongs to one of my sons, and we also have a pet tortoise which belongs to my other son, and he will sometimes get something from here, although his diet is made up predominantly of dandelions and dead nettles, which my son picks. The remainder and the bulk of this, probably 90% of this that we've just collected, will be pig food, which is why we're putting it here. Now sometimes when we collect this, there is some plastic packaging, depending on the shop that we collect it from. Some are better than others at removing all the plastic packaging for us, but sometimes there's plastic packaging, so I keep a little bin up here for me to be able to sort through it and take all that out. And I suspect while we're unloading we'll actually see the pigs, because they'll have heard the car, and usually when I drop this off I would feed them at the same time. Look at that. All right, girls. We're going to keep what's in these boxes for the guinea pig and the rabbits, and we can sort through the rest another time for picking out goat food and things. So now we're just driving back around the edge of the property, and next job, it is 9:45 now, so next job on our agenda is cheese making. We need to do the second part of our 3-part cheese making process. The second part happens on day 2. Like I say, it's a 3-day process, and none of the 3 parts takes more than an hour, but we've got plenty of time, I think. Like I say, it's 9:45, so we'll get in and separate our curds that we have currently sat in our way. So we used yesterday we treated the milk. We added the milk culture and the rennet, and we've left that sitting for 24 hours as of 15 minutes time, so we're going to go and deal with that now. Before I go in, I'll just quickly share with you a little story. So down here are my youngest son's bean plants right next to the front door, and we had we've just come off the back of 2 days really hot weather, and my wife said to him, Torrin, you might want to go and water your plants. They're looking a bit thirsty, because obviously they're in containers, so they need watering every day anyway. But and he's really conscientious and he's really good, but he'd forgotten to water them. So he came out and did it, and then he went and found his mum, my wife, and said, Mum, can this be our responsibility from now on? So I just thought it was a lovely story. He's so conscientious. He didn't want to shirk it completely, but he just wanted a bit of help. Starting to get his first beans. Look, he'll be ever so happy. He'll eat these straight off the plant, no doubt. Okay, 10 to 10. And it's on to cheese making. I brought in some of the fruit and veg that we've just collected, which is going to be separated out to give to the rabbit and the guinea pig who live out there. And I've just got to do a little bit of washing up now, make sure everything's clean and tidy, ready to get onto the cheese. I won't bore you with watching me wash up. Okay, we're all ready. Let's go get our curds and whey. They're not quite cheese yet, but it's on the way. Yesterday it was milk. Today it's curds and whey. Tomorrow it'll be cheese. Hello, son. In case you're wondering, I've got the house to myself because my wife and my kids have gone off to Granny and Grampy's with their mum, and they are having a day out. My father-in-law wanted my wife's help with something, basically, so she's taken the kids over with her. And yeah, so where else would you keep your curds and whey? In the bath. The reason they're in here is because we had an incredibly hot day yesterday and it was 33 degrees, something like that. This has got a thatched roof, this part of the house. This is one of the coolest rooms in the house. In an ideal world, you'd do this part of the process between 20 and 22 degrees. So this was the best room we had for it. So it's been 24 hours and you can see now we've got it separated into curds and whey. The whey is the really wet, watery stuff, and the curds is the more solidified stuff. You see how it moves around like a lump. So the next job is to separate the two. So we're going to do that effectively by straining it through this cheesecloth, which we're going to put over a colander in the sink. And then we're going to hang this up. So it's quite a simple step, but it can be quite messy. Quite often, the whey would just be a waste product. It would just, you know, be disposed of as waste, but it can be used to give to the animals to feed and drink, to reduce the animal feed costs. And it can also be used to make things. You can actually make caramel from the whey, which is awesome, and something we've done. I've actually done a video on that. It was one of my first ever YouTube videos, was how to make caramelized whey, and I think I've still got some in the fridge from the last batch we made. Yes. So this one I actually kept this one reducing for a bit too long, and it's kind of solidified, but you can see it just moving down there. I'll show you a little bit of this. It's worth the wait. So that can be used just like regular caramel. We use it to flavour ice cream and things. So it's just amazing. It's delicious. It's super sweet and sticky and it's everything you want from a caramel. And it's made from the waste product of making milk. How crazy. Now, of all the jobs I do to make the cheese, this is the one that is actually most helpful if you've got a spare pair of hands, which I do not today. And you see all that whey coming off. So we'll let some of that drain off quickly to reduce the space in here, and then we'll move the rest across. So I've tied the two opposing corners together so that it makes it much easier to hold, and then I'm going to pour the rest of the whey in through one of the holes there, which is going to be a lot easier if I transfer this first into a measuring jug. So there we go. That's our first batch of curds and whey in our cheesecloth. I'm going to do it with that other batch over there, and then we're going to hang both our cheesecloths up. So that's our cheese hanging up now, drying. It's going to separate the curds from the whey. It's really, really simple. It's just a sieving process. All we're doing is we're sieving the curd from the whey. The curds are the solidified part of the milk, and the whey is the liquid stuff. Now, I'll bring you in really close in a second, and you'll see that the whey that's coming out is super clear. So you see how clear that is, the whey that's coming out. And we're catching all that whey. There's a few remnants of the curds obviously in there. We're catching all that whey and just making sure that it goes to use, whatever that use might be, whether it's to feed our animals or turn it into something else. Like I say, the caramelized whey is delicious, but we only need so much of it. So yeah, so that will now hang there for 24 hours. This process slows down. So in an hour or two, I'll be able to close off the top of these bags with an elastic band or something just to protect them from the environment. But yeah, so they're going to be draining now until tomorrow. So now more washing up to clear up the cheese making stuff, and then we'll be getting ready to head out to the Quantock Beekeepers Association's apiary, where I'm going to have my last practical session there with my bees. It's the first beneficiary of the whey. Nice, mate? He loves it, but he is an idiot. Okay, cheese hanging, fruit and veg collected, bread moved, 10:30, so far so good. So now, I don't need to leave for bees for a little while, so I'm going to take this time now to edit Monday's episode of the podcast. So that's what I'm going to be doing. When I do my recording and editing, I do it on the bedroom floor because it's the room that I can guarantee peace and quiet in the most. I literally do it just down there on the floor. You see all those headphone cables and what have you, and it's also quite a soft space, so that helps with the, or you can probably hear now, the sort of background echo noise isn't there. So I'm going to turn this video off and go and edit a podcast, and then that one will be ready to be released on Monday. The one that's being released this coming Monday is another one in the soil nutrition series that I've done. So if you're not already following the podcast, then you might want to think about checking that out. We talk about all sorts of things, a lot of the same things that I talk about on the YouTube channel, but I tend to have more of an emphasis on personal food security and growing your own food on that podcast. But I also cover all the other things. So I do cover foraging and, you know, all the sort of homesteady stuff that we're doing here. So I'm going to put the kettle on, make myself a coffee, and I'll speak to you guys in a bit. Okay, time for the last job now before we leave, and that is lunch. We're just going to have some crackers, some homemade cheese. This is amazing. It's a red onion chutney that I made last year. It's amazing. The only thing it's lacking is a bit of spice. I like chutneys with a bit of chili in, but I've eaten all of those, so I need to make more this year. Some salad, all from the garden. Got some young spinach leaves, some lettuce, some cucumber, and some beetroot. Some of this fancy beetroot is what we call it, and a few sun-dried tomatoes. So gonna have this, and then when I speak to you next, I will probably be traveling down to the apiary to go and look at my bees. So this is my last trip out the house today, which is good. And it will feel nice. So I'm looking forward to this. I absolutely love inspecting my bees and going into the hive. But this is the last trip out the house today, and it's my last trip for a formal session of beekeeping, which is awesome, because as much as I love the actual bit that I'm there, the time spent traveling, because as I say, it's about an hour away, is something I could do without, really. So we're gonna go there now, look at the bees, come home, and then the rest of the day, it's gone 11 o'clock, so I'm gonna be home by around 2:30 would be my guess, between 2:30 and 3. So that gives me the rest of the day to kind of do everything else. The only other thing that has got a sort of time slot today will be milking the goats, which I try and do as close to 4 o'clock every day as possible. So we've just arrived at the apiary, so we're gonna get out, get our suit on, and go and have a look. So this is the apiary. This is where all the beehives are. You can see them in the background there. I'm here a little bit early. I thought that would give me the chance to just shoot a little bit of this footage before everyone else turns up. But before I do much else, I'm going to get my bee suit on and then get out there, get a bit closer to my hives. It's a very exciting time for me because I don't keep them at home and I've only really got access once every other week. It's quite exciting. So the only bits of kit that are essential for having a look are this, which is a smoker. There's a flip top lid to it, and you basically put your burning material in there, set fire to it, and then put the lid on, and then there's not much airflow, so it kind of goes out and just smoulders, and then when you pump that, it pushes air through the fire. If you're quite coherent with how natural fires work, that'll kind of make sense to you. So it just smoulders, but when you pump the air through it, it pumps all that smoke out the top, which is great. And the other bit of kit is just something simple as that, called a hive tool, and you just use that because basically the bees, throughout their process of working, they stick everything together, and this just allows you to just lever things apart from each other, really. So the only other bit of equipment is your bee suit and gloves, so I'm going to put those on now. So this is the apiary building. It's great, and there's like a classroom inside, and there's actually a beehive in there that the bees access this way, and there's mesh screening the other side, and it allows for lessons so that people can all stand around the mesh screening and look at a beehive being opened by someone else. It really is an excellent setup. And of course there's all the other hives dotted around that are all doing different things, owned by different people, but they're all part of the organization here. And over there, the middle one of those three, that would be my hive. So that hive there, that's mine. That's the one that will be coming back to my house. Now, the plan was we were actually going to be moving that next week in the next few days, but there's been an outbreak of something called European foul brood, which is a disease that takes hold within hives, and it's quite serious. So much so that there's kind of, just like we've had a lockdown, there's a bee lockdown in place in the area at the moment, and a local governing body sends someone out called the bee inspector, and they're going to inspect every one of these hives to make sure that there's no signs of European foul brood. They're coming on Monday. So if all is well, it'll be after Monday I'll be given the green light to remove my hive and take it home. So I will definitely be doing a video on that, but that's going to be coming up in the next few days. So fingers crossed. And when I inspected it last 2 weeks ago, there was certainly no sign of any issues within the hive. So I'll be checking it again shortly. As you're aware, I might not be able to get much good footage of that, but I'll share what I can. We're just waiting for everyone else to arrive. That's the worker bees coming and going. I've set up a tripod, and hopefully it's going to be okay to record me checking the bees. I'm going to be taking the lid off and then taking the frames out one at a time.
Right, which one's yours? This one? Right. Yeah, okay. I sometimes see them. The other thing you'll find is if a wasp tries to get in, they'll really go for it.
Yeah, more than one.
Yeah, if you've got a strong colony, they will, yes. I always think looking after bees, you've got to behave a bit like a spaceman. The slower you are, the less jolts they get, the better they are generally. So what do you think you've got there?
I've got lots of healthy bees as far as I can see.
Yeah.
And is that stores?
Yeah, around the edge there.
Yeah.
Some stores, and actually the ones that look a bit dirty there, that is open, that's pollen that they've stashed away in there. So if you have a
So
look,
what's the difference between stores and pollen? What am I seeing? Stores is...
well, stores round the edge, it's usually capped and white.
Yes.
The stores is honey.
And that's pollen they've turned into honey.
Yes, and if you look there, you've got stores in the middle because it's shiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And wet.
Yeah, and you've got some that are sort of opaque and they're different colours, and that's pollen, and they feed the larvae pollen because that's their protein.
Yes.
And obviously the honey is carbohydrate, so they get a balanced diet for the larvae. But you get all different colours of pollen depending on what they go and visit, and it's fascinating. Some of it's almost black. You think, oh, it's mouldy, but it's not. They've been visiting bees or something. Some of it is pure white, Himalayan balsam they bring in, pure white pollen. And actually when you get going with this, if you're interested, you can test your honey to see what they've been visiting. And they're all different shape.
Yes, under a microscope.
Yeah, that's right. So here, what have you got? What's all this in the middle?
Brood.
Yep. They're doing well though. Down more code by then anyway, so
Yeah.
there we go. One healthy little hive, doing well. You'll not need your super this year, I don't think.
No. Just taking my bee suit off, packing up, ready to hit the road. It is 2:10 in the afternoon, so heading home now, and next job, I think, is going to be starting to cook dinner for the family. We're going to have a nice roast dinner today. So let's get home and get on with that. Just got back home and going to start dinner now. When it comes to dinner and chores and stuff like that, my wife and I we kind of just split everything. There are some things that we both do, some things that I tend to do, and some things that she tends to do. She tends to do the early animal round of checking on everyone and food and water and things like that. And she tends to do a great deal of the housework, a lot more than I do. And she does all the laundry. There's lots and lots of things she does. Historically, I used to work a ridiculous number of hours, so we fell into a pattern, really.
Take the first one.
Sorry, love? So my family's all home, and I've just put the meat... It's all right, Torrin, it's pointing this way. I've just put the meat in the oven for dinner, and we're going to go and collect the chicken eggs now. It is currently... What time is it, someone? No one knows. Maybe 3:30? Something like that. So we're going to collect the eggs, and then we're going to milk the goats. They think it's milking time. Look. Yeah, we're not quite there yet. So we just turned the electric fence off. Must remember to turn that back on. This is the trailer that you saw me turn into a chicken house. So we'll get these guys' eggs first. So apparently, my wife is the one who normally collects the eggs. But apparently, they don't actually lay too many in these boxes, as you'll see. So that's the 3 nesting boxes. Just got the 4 eggs in there. But where they are laying is the second place that I suspected they would when we were building it, which is the bit just underneath. So we collect these eggs up and then go on to the next flock of hens. That's the first lot of eggs collected. Onto the chickens in the wood. Torrin, would you hold my basket for me, mate?
I can film for you if you want.
Sorry?
I could film for you if you want.
That's all right. No, that's all right. Maybe when we go in the wood, you can do the filming. My son doesn't like being on camera. Sorry, Jackie? In there, yeah, the bread's in there. So my wife's going to take some of the bread that we moved earlier and she's going to give that out to our hens. And again, that is all just to keep the feed costs down. So we've picked up some of the old bread and watch these girls go. They love it. So throw some over there, Tar. That's all right. Well, let's get this gate open and then we'll... Yeah, that's all right. We'll get the gate open. We'll go on in and then we can throw it easily, can't we?
Sure.
So within any flock of hens, there's a pecking order. That's where the term comes from. Do you need a hand with the gate, mate, or are you all right?
No, I'm fine.
And the pecking order literally determines the order in which the hens get to eat. So if there's a scarce food source and you're at the bottom of the pecking order, you don't get anything. So that's why it's really important, if you've got lots of birds and you want them all to get some, that you break it up into plenty of different bits and spread it around. So this is a real treat for them. Another thing to bear in mind, if you do have access to a lot of bread like we do, it's great to give to your hens, it really is, and the constituent parts are grains. But you need to bear in mind, you need to make sure that your hens are getting everything they need. So if yours don't have a nice big area to forage for bugs and grubs and things like that, then you know, you do need to make sure they're getting other things as well, and they need a lot of greens as well. So just bear that in mind if you're trying to supplement your diet with bread. Right, let's go get some eggs. Torrin's going to collect these eggs. He would normally come round with Mum far more often than I do, so he's actually...
A lot of the time I do it by myself.
Yeah, a lot of the time you do it by yourself, don't you? Good boy. Is that about the usual amount from in there?
This is a lot from in here.
Is it?
Normally there's like at most 3 or 4. That one's a soft shell egg, so it's already broken.
Okay, do you want me to deal with that in a minute?
Yes. Sorry, I'll quickly. We have one more proper egg in there, so
So how bad is the soft shell one?
it's already very cracked. Half
Okay.
of it's gone.
Okay.
8 eggs, just not. But there could be 1 or 2 more eggs. Usually there are no more eggs, but there might be 1 or 2.
So this is a soft shell egg. You can see the shell is virtually see-through in places. It's really, really thin. These girls are going to enjoy that. So we can get rid of that just by throwing it out there. If you're getting soft shell eggs, there's all sorts of reasons for it. It's generally a lack of calcium, actually, not fibre. Think about calcium. Calcium is what we use to create our bones and our nails, Torrin. So a lack of calcium. But what we have in here, we introduced... Can you find any, Torrin, of the young ones? We introduced some... No, there's some younger ones than that even. There's 5, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But there's some very young hens in here which are just starting to lay.
There's 2. Boom.
Yeah. So that one running away there. Those 2. That one getting pecked. You see they're much younger than the rest. So one of them might have just started laying, and it's not infrequent for the first few eggs or egg or 2 to have some kind of issues like that. It's another one of the very, very young ones. Right.
Isn't it grit? That's what grit does, isn't it?
Well,
That helps with that.
well, grit is very important to chickens. It's how they literally grind up their food, isn't it? It goes in their crop. So hens actually need a certain amount of grit. So hens do actually need to eat a certain amount of grit, and it stays in their crop. And that is how they actually grind up their food, because they don't have teeth. That's where you get that saying from, rare as hen's teeth.
Ah,
How many hidden eggs?
1.
Just the
so
one.
far, maybe more. Still quite a lot of hay. Still quite a lot of bedding to dig through. 2.
So this is the grit that you want to make sure that you've got available. It's made out of seashells and things like that crushed down.
So what's for dinner?
We're gonna have a roast dinner.
Ah.
Roast dinner tonight.
So how much of it is from our garden?
Pretty much all of it. So the meat is from the pigs from last year. Remember the pigs?
Yeah.
And
potatoes?
the potatoes. Yep.
Best
Mum.
part.
Yep. Mum dug the potatoes up. Potatoes from our bed just here. And we've got lots of veggies from our garden as well.
Yeah.
It'd be yummy, wouldn't it? Oh, apart from the runner beans, where are they from? Whose garden?
Grampy's.
Grampy's runner beans. Grampy grows so many runner beans. Where are we going next? Any more eggs?
In there, but first we'll just go. Yeah, have you already collected them? There's one egg from in there.
So that's the egg from Poultry Paradise, where my wife's...
Before you go in there.
Where my wife's frivolous bantams, not bantams, frivolous Brahmas live. These guys, one egg. One egg. Is that a good return? Torrin, one egg from those guys?
Actually, it is, because Mum only wanted them to be pets.
Hmm.
So we're getting any eggs, it's good. It is, isn't it? Yeah, half of them are babies,
Oh, okay.
so there are only a few.
I'm recording now.
Yeah, look at that.
What's going to happen with that cucumber probably, Torrin? What's the most likely outcome for that cucumber?
Goes inside for a few minutes, then I eat it whole. It's not, I think this one's one of the longest ones, but it's one of the thinnest ones
Yeah.
as well.
Yep.
Another big one over here.
Yeah. I think I need to get some potash. I need to get some ash in here because I think, you see this? I need to double check, but I think this paleness in between the veins on the leaves is a potash deficiency. So I need to get some potash on the ground in here. Oh, look at
Where
those.
is it? There was one really big one. There it is.
Yeah. Happy jalapeno.
Really big.
So what's going to happen with that one? If you're going to eat the cucumbers, what's going to happen with that one?
You're going to eat that probably with a burger. Also one down here that Mum pointed out. Then there's two up here that this one's...
Cucumbers are doing
Probably-
really well, aren't they, this year?
Yeah, really well. Then we have like a bell pepper down there.
Yeah.
Doing really well. It's nearly as big as the shop bought ones.
Yeah.
It's going to be better.
Yeah, it is.
The shop bought ones are like, they're getting ones that don't need to taste good. They're just trying to make it look good, aren't they?
That's my boy. So, got our cheese hanging out, got our eggs there. Someone's going to need to just rinse off some of these, but they're pretty clean. So important to keep your nesting boxes clean where your chickens are going to lay. So doesn't it save a lot of work
Yeah.
if you've got clean eggs? So we've got our pork, which is from our animals that we had in the garden, in the oven there. We're going to put some potatoes in there with it now and then sort out some veg. And then I'm hoping I'm going to be able to put the potatoes in and then go out and milk the goats. This is lazy roast potatoes. Just to save time. So normally I would obviously have peeled them and parboiled them first, but they will cook quite happily as long as you don't have them up too high. Just like this. Skins on, and they're going to come out lovely. Want to make sure they all get a good coating of the fat. And they're going to want just over an hour.
So just outside the door here, we have a little blueberry bush. Just here. Got some nice blueberries on it. As you can see here, not the most perfect or anything, but don't need to be. Really good, a little bit sour, but still amazing. We have loads and loads on this bush here. We have them everywhere. Not that old of a bush, but I'm gonna stop recording, grab some of the blueberries and take them inside.
So the veggies are all cut and in the pots ready to go, so it's time to go and do the goats. You coming, Ruckus?
Yes. Yes.
Both my boys are coming out, so that's useful.
Not his daughter though.
Not his daughter though. Doesn't like being on the camera. So all the boys now going to milk the goats. We've got a pretty good routine. To be fair, Ruckus, you come most days, don't you, to do the goats? And you could probably do them completely without me.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
If you were there.
Well, I think if he had to, he could probably do the whole thing all on his own, starting the generator and
Stop
putting everything.
putting this on me so you can go out.
It's like
Like,
when I'm
No.
there, having you there is like a confidence boost, I think.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah, no, I get that. But so what we're going to do is we're going to milk the goats. We've moved paddocks since the last video I did with the goats. So we're down here now. I'm not going to film the whole process because you have seen it before. First job is to get all the girls clipped up so that they can't get in the way really while we're... Hey, go on in, Tom.
You go down.
Okay. All good? So Ruckus is quite capable of actually doing the milk, and he's just lacking a bit of confidence. At the moment, all he's got to do really is just keep an eye on those pipes and keep an eye on the size of the udders, and then turn it off when she's been milked. And that's it. Good boy. That's it. Now she knows what's happening. Good boy. So they'd normally have me helping them a little bit, but they wanted to try it on their own. I think it went quite well, didn't it?
Yeah. You should probably explain why rhubarbs.
Why don't you explain?
Why don't you explain?
Rhubarb's over here because she's very, very naughty. Why is she over there?
Because she always rams us if she's out.
She hasn't done it for a while, has she? But she used to before she knew who Boss was.
Well, the reason she stopped is mainly because I always stay near you now. Unless she's
Done? Goats all milked. What's next, boys?
no, we'll take it inside and process it.
Yep. So we're going to pack up. Well, we're going to pack up first, Todd. Put all this stuff away outside the gate. Then we'll let them off. Yeah? Because then we haven't got to worry about them running out through the gate while we're not looking. Well done. Do you want me to take that, mate? And you take the... Okay. That's all right. I got it. Shall I man the gate while you unclip everyone?
Yes.
So shall I man the gate,
Okay,
Rock, and you
okay.
go and unclip? Yeah.
I'll just leave that for you.
World's worst gate.
No, it's because the post isn't in.
Yeah, well, the post's a bit wobbly,
Yeah, we need
but you can see if you look down the fence line here, it's all a bit wobbly, and that's fine. That's fine. It keeps the goats in. But where the timber expands and contracts, this sometimes doesn't. The catch doesn't sometimes meet up. So we use a bungee just to be on the safe side. It's not the most elegant solution. Doesn't look the prettiest, but keeps the goats in, and that's the main thing. Right. Next stop, kitchen. We're going to process the milk and finish cooking dinner. Sorry, mate?
And wash up there.
And wash up. Constant washing up. And having said, I mean, my wife's going to watch this video at some point. And when I just said constant washing up, in her head, the words, "Oh my God, I can't believe he's got the cheek to even say that," came, because my wife does a lot more washing up than I do. My wife does a hell of a lot more work than I do. I'm certainly not trying to suggest otherwise just because I'm the one in the video. She doesn't like to be filmed, but yeah, she does at least as much as me. So, rest of the day then. What time is it now, boys? Let's have a look. It's 4:30, so we're going to go in, prepare dinner, eat dinner. Like I said, we're going to have roast pork with vegetables from our garden. What are we going to have for pudding, boys?
Don't know.
You don't know? What's Mum made?
Oh, ice cream.
Cake and ice cream.
What ice cream?
Ice cream from our goat milk, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's
Homemade.
homemade mint
Mint
choc chip ice cream.
Which is my favourite flavour.
You're a bit excited about that. Yeah,
No,
so
I'm very excited.
so that's that, and then we're going to come back out. So I've still got a couple of little jobs on my list that I'd like to get done. One I need to get done. Really need to go around and just check on all of our rat traps. I weeded most of our annual vegetable bed a couple of days ago, and I've got about a quarter of it left. I really want to get through the rest of that. So hopefully I'll be able to do all that straight after dinner and not be back in the house too late. I like to get in quite early. So let's see how we get on.
Tom Holland, and he's talking about
Tom Holland?
Tom Holland. I don't know how to pronounce it. And he's talking about how he like.
Whose is that, Steph?
Yours.
Next job is to feed these guys. Hello. Snakes fed. It's getting on for 6:30 now. We've all finished dinner. The kids will be all in their rooms. What happens at 6:30? We've got a point system in the house, basically, for using the Wi-Fi, using any gadgets, any screens, anything like that. So the children are allowed screen time, Wi-Fi, TV, things like that, from 6:30 in the evening till 9:30 in the evening, 3 hours. And then they're allowed it again in the morning when they wake up until 10 o'clock if it's not a school day. And if they want to use Wi-Fi or gadgets outside that time, then they have to spend points to do so. And they're like our household currency. So I can't show you because it'll never pick it up, but there's 2 green woodpeckers just flown down the avenue here in front of me. Yeah, so if they want to use gadgets or Wi-Fi or screens outside those hours, they have to earn the points to do so. And each point is worth 10 minutes additional gadget time. So, for instance, when Rockus processes the milk for me and, cleans it, bottles it, and then does all the washing up associated with it, etc., that's worth 3 points. They can rack up an extra hour here and there without too much trouble. So that's the system that we've got in operation. And because it's just gone 6:30, they'll all be on their gadgets right now, making the most of the free time where they don't have to spend points. So I've just come out to go through our rat poison, basically. Now, it's not something I like doing, but unfortunately, because we're so spread out here and because we've got animals that we feed, we do get pests, and this is the only way that I've been able to control them. Now, I mentioned in one of my other videos, in my how to keep your chickens safe video, I think it was, that there's a certain feeder that I like to use. And I'll just show you it now. It's called a treadle feeder. And it's that box just there. And what happens is there's a little tray in front of it, and when the chickens stand on the tray, it lifts up a little latch at the back and they can access the feed. And what that does is it means that pests can't get to the food. They can't get their beaks in there and just toss it all over the place. So it's a really economical way of feeding them, and also it doesn't encourage the pests. Cool. Look, this is one of our volunteer tomato plants here. Look at that. It's going to be a decent sized tomato, and quite a few more coming. We've got all sorts of tomato plants all through here, all along there. They're the ones that really should have gone in the compost, but my wife couldn't bring herself to do it, so she spent quite a long time planting them in there. Yeah, so those treacle feeders certainly help with not attracting pests, but it doesn't matter what we do. If the only way we could reduce the amount of food available to the pests here that is naturally going to encourage them would be to only use treacle feeders, and then only use shop bought feed that went in them. So it's just not practical. So when we're feeding bread and things like that, there's always going to be little crumbs left around that attract the pests. So we have to keep these bait boxes topped up to keep the numbers down. It would be a bit irresponsible of us not to, because the numbers would build up over the summer, and then when the winter came, they'd all move inside, not only to our house but to our neighbours' houses. So it'd be a bit socially irresponsible of me not to do what I can to keep their numbers under control. So we'll just change this one here. Now we put two different types of bait in it. We put this blue grain poison, and also a red block, but the red block was hardly touched, which is a great sign. Basically, if you're coming to these every week, and I check these every week, if you're coming to these every week and every week all the bait's gone, then you've got a pretty serious infestation. If you're having to just top them up every 2 or 3 weeks or less, then you're on top of your problem. We've got some of these now that, even though I check them every week, I haven't needed to top them up for months and months. So it's a way of keeping that population down. And obviously you need to be, if you're going to use something like this, you need to be mindful of where you're putting them, because your pests are going to be going wherever your animal feed is. So I'm just going to get around and do the rest now. So the chickens that are now in the wood, they were here not so long ago. You can see where the grass is all bare because they got through it all. But you can actually see, I don't know how keen your eyes are, but you can actually see this different coloured patch, which is where the outside of their run was. All this different coloured grass here is where it's soaked up all that nitrogen from the chicken droppings. And this incredible lush growth is basically because it's been heavily fertilised, heavily manured. So because our chickens were here, we have another bait box just down here. So again, you can see in here that we've still got both partially eaten bait that have been in there for a good couple of weeks now. So that's brilliant. That's exactly what we want to see. So I've got another 6 or 7 of these boxes to do around the property. I won't bore you with showing you every single one of them. But yeah, I'm going to get on and do that, and then head over to my vegetable bed, do a little bit of weeding. So you see how that's nearly full? So tomorrow will be, basically all you do is we just put that in a bowl, mix it with a little bit of salt, and then add anything else you want to. So in the spring, I quite often mix it with wild garlic, but you can use black pepper, or you can leave it plain for just a beautiful plain goat's cheese. But that'll be all we need to do with that tomorrow. But at the moment, you can see all that whey, that's up to about there on that pan, and we've already taken a fair bit off it. So that's drying out nicely. I just came in to wash my hands after doing all the rat poison. So like I was saying, I don't really like using it, but I don't feel I have a lot of choice. Our first winter here we had quite a big infestation in the house, all in the roof and everywhere, and that was quite hard to deal with for every reason you can imagine. It was physically hard to deal with insofar as actually getting them under control, because they were everywhere, and they were everywhere in the garden as well. So that's a legacy that's gone on since before we moved in. So it was really difficult to get them under control and keeping them under control. And the thought of us and what we're doing here having that sort of impact on our neighbours is not one I can stomach. So we're just not willing to take any risks, really. Anyway, so that's all of our traps done. There were 2 more traps that I had to top up, but all the rest were pretty much either untouched or barely touched. So that's awesome. So the time now is 10 to 7 p.m. and I'm just going to weed the last bit of my vegetable bed that I didn't get to finish the other night. This is our perennial bed, or it will be. Most of the things in here are perennials, with one glaring exception at the moment, or 2 glaring exceptions rather, and that is this sweet corn. And you can see the odd volunteer potato plant from last year's potatoes. But other than those, everything over here is perennials. So we've got down here some hazel, which we're going to be transplanting somewhere. This was given to me by my father-in-law. And we've also got a couple of sycamores, which we're going to be putting up in the wood somewhere. Over here, we've got something called wormwood. So wormwood is a natural treatment that animals like chickens will basically self-medicate, and it helps to treat them for worms. So 2 days ago, this was all up here. It's a huge plant, it grows so fast, so vigorous. So we chopped it all down just to get it under control, really, and spread that out among all our animals, and they all had a nibble. So that's good. We've got a lovely big asparagus bed here. So I've put canes in to try and support them, and I think maybe I need to put some more in to try and support these lovely big ferns. There's a few that have gone over. Now, this is actually the 3rd year of this plant, and we could have cropped it a bit more heavily than we did, but I didn't get all these lovely big ferns last year, so I'm trying to give it every chance of being super vigorous next year. So that's why I've left them again. I've left them a bit earlier than I might have had to. This mulch down here is actually the byproduct of a huge dairy farm's biodigester. But I know someone who works for a huge dairy farm, and they have this massive, basically an electricity generator that runs on the cow manure, and then this is the byproduct of it. But it's still got loads and loads of great nutrients in it. It is an absolutely fantastic mulch / compost. And in fact, I'll show you that we've got an experiment going this year where it's the only thing in this bath I'm about to show you where some of our runner beans are. So we're growing these runner beans in a bath that's just filled with that, and they are doing just fine. So not masses of beans yet, but there's a fair few, and more coming. So yeah, it makes a great fertilizer / compost / mulch. Anyway, back to the weeding. So we've had our first early potatoes out, and we've got some seedlings in the polytunnel which are going to be ready to go in there and fill all the other little spaces that we have. We've had a terrible year for our annual vegetable bed. I won't lie, it's been really difficult, but we're getting there, and we're probably going to end up having to buy some vegetables this year, which is a real shame. But we can only do what we can do, and we can't control the weather, and all we can do is learn from our mistakes and make sure that we keep making them and make them frequently. Fail early, fail often. But we've got quite a lot coming on, and then we get to about here, and this is the bit that I need to go through and weed quickly. So I'm going to do that now. one of the advantages, one of the many advantages for having this mulch is it does make weeding that little bit easier, because the mulch is going to suppress quite a lot of the weeds, and those that are growing are usually not that deep rooted, so they're really quite easy to pull up. One of the persistent weeds we have here is this bindweed, and it's a real pain, but it is getting better. I am weakening the plant by just vigilance, really. So if you've got this bindweed, you want to make sure you're pulling it a lot, and because what's going to happen is it's got roots underneath the ground. Those roots have a certain amount of energy in, and it expels some of that energy in sending up these shoots, putting growing leaves on them that are going to photosynthesize and help it grow more, you know, build more energy and then build its roots. But if you can constantly remove the shoots when they're about this size, then what's going to happen is that energy that the root is constantly depleting by sending them up is going to gradually, very gradually over time, be diminished and depleted, and you are going to win. But it's a case of vigilance and patience. Anyway, I don't think I need to film myself weeding this whole bed, but I'm just going to get on and do it now quickly, and I'll speak to you in a sec. All done. So I'm actually really happy with that. I don't mind weeding. I actually quite enjoy it. I'm on my hands and knees and I do it with my hands and I just pull them all out. I do occasionally hoe as well, but with this bindweed, that hoeing is really not very helpful, because all it does is it cuts the plant into several pieces, and each of those pieces is going to propagate a new one. It's it's a nightmare plant. So I just pull every piece out. But there's something really rewarding when you've got right to the end of your bed and the whole thing is just weeded. So yeah, no, I'm happy. It's 7:30 now in the evening, so I think I'm going to pretty much sign off from you guys. I'm going to go in, I'm going to have something to drink, and then I'm going to edit a couple of videos, not just this one. I've got another couple of videos as well to be edited, so I'm probably going to be editing for about an hour and a half. Probably won't get all 3 done in that time, to be fair. It takes a little while. But that's going to conclude my Saturday. So I hope you've enjoyed coming along with me for a Saturday. I've certainly enjoyed sharing it with you. And one last job before I go in. I'm going to just connect the hose up and fill up the pig's water trough, because from memory I think that's going to need doing. But yeah, quite a busy day. Saturdays are probably my most structured day, to be fair. They're the day when this is generally what I do on a Saturday, is I make sure that we've got all the animal feed for the week, and the traps are set and topped up, and things like that. All the things, you know, if I've got to go out the house, then Saturday's the day I like to do it, and then Sundays are really my own to do more of the same, but also to do little projects and things that come to mind. I'm going to sign off now. Thanks for watching. If you find these videos valuable, as always, please do subscribe to our channel. Make sure you press that like button. Leave me a comment down below. I don't know if you can tell, I'm feeling quite tired now all of a sudden, because I've told you it's the end of the day. My brain has heard what I've said and agrees. So, yeah, see you on the next one. Cheers.